Hey lovelies, AstrologyDyle here. This is my first transmission. I felt 2023 to be the time to finally do this, to look at a camera and share the themes of this year. And the reason that is that this year is very unlike the last 3 years. It's really a new beginnings in so many ways. We've already been feeling this energy because Jupiter moved into Aries in May, June, July, which is the first house of new beginnings and identity. And we've all probably been figuring out what is our identity for the next 12 years going forward, imagining and envisioning what the next 12 years looks like. And after it retrograded back for a few months, it went forward again on December 21st, 2022, just on the solstice there. And as we go into the new year with Jupiter and Aries, really it is a time to think about how the next 12 years is going to go. And there's some very large, long cycle sequences that are beginning and ending. And I thought it prescient a time to kind of share an overview of some of the main unfoldings over the next year, with also a specific focus on the upcoming new moon, which is in Aquarius on the 21st of January. It's quite a powerful moment to consider our actions and where we stand in community and really where we stand in the Aquarian age going forward this late January. So I'm kind of sending this out with 10 days of notice to consider where to focus your dharma and your purpose going forward. I don't know if many of you know, but my main focus is offering people guidance towards their purpose and their dharma, with specific current, it seems, focus on all the readings that I've been doing around Chiron and Lilith, the wounded masculine and the rewilding of the feminine, and then a lot of Uranian Aquarius orientated readings. That just seems to be the people I'm attracting. And I think that's because we are coming into a new age, and the people that are coming to me are part of that in some way. And of course it's not always that way, but it seems to be a bit of a theme for me in 2023 and 2022, of course. And I feel like just to really get started as a large theme going forward is we've had Pluto in Capricorn since 2008, which has really been about unearthing the deep, dark secrets, the hidden truths of corporations, governments, anything from a top-down approach, centralized approach. And that's about to change. We're about to have Pluto move into Aquarius on March 23rd, 2023. And in many ways, this is the culmination of a transition that began in 1969. The age of Aquarius. I mean, we've probably all heard it before, but really what that was in 1969, Pluto began its transition process that will really be fully initiated into Aquarius come late March. And while this year Pluto only moves into Aquarius for 3 months, it is a new energy field. It is the kind of the ending cycle of dealing with top-down government approach, and the power really being with the Capricornian energy. We're going to find in 2023, specifically between April, May, and June, as it runs through Aquarius, we're going to feel the people power, the Aquarian rebellious energy, the movement towards more and more technology. And this is going to be the beginning of a 20-year theme. So Pluto will finally move fully into Aquarius in 2025 to stay there for 20 years. So it's December 2024, so it's really 2024 to 2024, to 2044. And so we have this little dance where Pluto will go over the first degree of Aquarius back into Pisces, into the patriarch, into the old world, and we'll go forward and we'll have a taste of what the new world is. And by January 2025, we will be on a completely new course. And when you put that energy with the Jupiter in Aries, I really feel like this year it's going to be a completely different energy. And really on top of that, you have Saturn moving from Aquarius, where it's sat since March 2020, moving back into Pisces, moving forward into Pisces, from the 11th house to the 12th house of the Elder. So Saturn will be in the Elder. And that's why this transition is a 2-year period really into the Aquarian age, because while Pluto moves into Aquarius, Saturn, the other great teacher, ruler of time, ruler of challenge and great deep lesson through time and usually external factors. Saturn is also an elder because it's ruled by Capricorn, so the lessons can be given by elders. So we're going to have Pluto move forward into the new age, and then we're going to have Saturn go back and spend basically from March 1st, it's going to move into Pisces and give us a year of Saturn and Pisces, which I'll discuss later in the report. But so for me, the main energy shift that's happening in 2023 is this giant move from, as I say, Capricorn to Aquarius. And what that really means is that there's going to be a complete reevaluation of how we operate as a community, as an individual, as a family in relationships. So in the Aquarian age, you have relationship by more than one person, like the age of polyamory, the age of new relationship, the idea of having a family and kids and the centralized, family unit, our tribe, we take care of ourselves. That was the Piscean age. And it was part of the patriarchy. It was part of the masculine, kind of controlling the feminine, if you look at what happened with Lilith and that archetype. That will end, and it'll be a 3-year phase, but it's been really felt since 1969. And if you look at female liberation and the rewilding of Lilith in general, 69 and the 60s in general were the beginning of a new time, and I feel like we are moving into the actualization of that time. And what that looks like is that the family model, instead of growing up your children by your singular clan, perhaps just your uncles and their parents, now we're going to have communities entirely built and taken care of by everyone. It's going to be parenting by community. And we're going to rely more on others. And the interconnectedness of the earth is going to become more and more palpable. And this, we could feel this in 2020, 2021. Suddenly everyone was online, everyone was connected in the web. But this is going to be turning into the physical realm now as well, with communities getting together, forming bubble communities where people intentionally get together with the goal, and set up 30 houses together with some land. And these are the Aquarian models of living that we haven't really experienced in this lifetime, which will be, it's just a natural energy that's going to be lifting up. And schooling will change. Instead of us all going to a centralized program and schooling, there'll be home sharing and there'll be community-led teaching. So I kind of ask you to consider this as we move into the Aquarian new moon on the 21st of January is, what is your collective envisioning? What is your relationship to community? How do you perceive the idea of, romantic relationships that are not just the old world of, find a partner, get married, have children, take care of each other? And of course, that is more relevant than ever because we need to always find ourselves in love. But are there other more optimal models that we can rely on each other? Because in the new age, the governments of the world and the corporates of the world are not going to be taking care of us in the same way. We're going to have to be more independent, and we're going to have to be more resourceful at a community level for us to win, for us to thrive. And we are really co-creators of this energy. So I ask you to envision, what does that look like for you in 2023? And a particularly potent moment will be this 21st of January. I feel like the other aspect that we really have to make a choice point around in 2023 is this technology piece. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus is a very electrical, advanced, futuristic, idealistic energy as a planet. And what are we going to do with AI? How are we going to make it work for us as a species? How are we going to have the technology serve us? And how are we going to make sure that the tyrannical aspects of it, which we're witnessing in certain parts of the world during the last 2 years, do not become the operandus mendi for our species? And these are deeper questions we're going to have to confront them naturally in the Aquarian age. But I think this late January is a good choice moment. And see what happens generally at the last degrees of a long cycle, something like Pluto, which moves in very long cycles, and we're at the 29th degree now, is a lot of things are brought up right at the end. Imagine like the last degree being like the balsamic moment where everything comes up to be re-questioned. And so between now and March 23rd, the Capricornian energy in the corporate bodies and governments and so on are going to be potentially doubling down on the energy that's already been built since 2008. And what happens with that energy is it builds up, and then it boomerangs the exact opposite way as we move into the new energy. So in the next 2 months, we might witness a move towards the feeling of like the constriction and the top-down approach, and then the complete opposite, opposing force come, late March all the way through June, where we witness rebellious people power, organization by groups. And the last 2 years has really shown us that, while people have wanted certain things, governments have really had their say and corporates have had their say. And that has been very easy under the Capricornian energy, but that will shift. And so it's really up to us to figure out, what does that look like? How are you self-organizing? How is your community going to show up for each other in this coming time? And the one thing I'd like to bring up, and this happened 2 years ago, but it's really worth considering about what the energy is now as a species. And really, in 2020, we moved from a great Earth age to an air age. And so the 200-year Earth age ended on the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction of December 20th, 2020. I don't know if you remember that date. It was very powerful. You could see Jupiter and Saturn in the sky together. I remember I was in California and I went on this very long, almost pilgrimage. I went on like an 8-hour slow walk, and I completely changed my direction at that point. I made a decision to come to Costa Rica, where I've been a lot the last 2 years. And I didn't know at the time, but in my astrocartography, Costa Rica is where my Aquarius Uranian line is. And in that moment, I chose unconsciously to leave a Mars-Saturn line, which had taught me a lot in Los Angeles, and come to Costa Rica more. And we're all making these choices, but you have to remember, Aquarius is an air energy, and anywhere in the coming air age. So let me explain further. So when we moved from the Earth age, imagine the last 200 years is the time where we built the buildings, we built the railroads, we built the shipping, we built the entire physical Earth domain so that we could like structure ourselves and operate as a species. Now, the next 140 years are all air signs. The Jupiter-Saturn conjunction will be in air signs. We'll be in Libra, we'll be in Aquarius, we'll be in Gemini. Right now we're in Libra. And then we'll move into Gemini, and then we'll move into Aquarius. And so think about this time, and particularly 2023, as the moving into the air age. And that's why drones are more popular. It's why air taxis, it's why the sky is now suddenly being valued. It's why we're thinking about, what are we going to do with airspace? What is, ideas, IP, like interconnectivity, social media. These are all air ideas. Technology is air by its nature too. Instead of fixed earth-bound industries, shipping, lumber, food, the focus in the next 140 years is to use all that. We built the world. We did a good job. Now, how do we optimize it with our technology, with our ideas, with our ability to collaborate together on this interconnected global world? And that's why these shared-based businesses, Airbnb, Uber, that's why they've all come, because they're all about the sharing economy. They're all about the Aquarian economy. And we know, you look at digital nomads, you see the value that's being put now on shared economic resources and how do we do things at a technological level. And this can be scary, because a lot of people have dealt with 200 years of Earth, and a lot of people are very scared of technology right now, or scared of the impact it's having. But just know that when something dies, there's always going to be a lot reborn. And so while we are in a time where we're moving into a technological age of interconnectedness, and tech is becoming more and more powerful in our lives, there are ways that we can make it work for us. And I do think of, people leaving cities and living in nature, but still being connected to the grid and still being able to share their gifts and still being able to create economic value. This is a beautiful thing. Like, why do we have to go to, why does everyone have to go to an office and waste time away from their families when they could be with their family, being with their child, growing them up? If you think about the Earth Age, the amount of fathers that just were completely absent from children's lives. And that was a giant shift in 2020 and 2021. Suddenly, children that were born, and I experienced this with a bunch of my friends, they got to be with their fathers most of the day. And I know it wasn't perfect because we were dealing with this giant shift. But I think as time goes by, we're going to get much better at having, our family unit together and working together. And maybe you can do it in nature, not just the city, which we've all been moving towards a city over the last, 100 years. So I think that's worth considering, is that we're now in the air age, and technologically we have to consider how that's going to work. Now, the Jupiter and Aries piece, I just want to touch on that again. Jupiter's ruled by Sag, so it's, Sagittarius is the tripper. If they're not tripping as they travel, they're tripping in books, in knowledge. They're, the sage and the guru, and Jupiter rules it. Jupiter is expansion, and so I ask you, where are you expanding in the next 12 years? Really, this is the beginning of a long cycle, and between now and May is the time to focus about where you're putting your expansive energy. And Aries is like the baby. It's like this, it's the cardinal fire of the zodiac. It's like initiation. And so we're in a giant initiation, and that's why I think we're only getting this little taste of the Pluto Aquarius energy. But as Jupiter ingresses through Aries between now and May 16th, it really is a time of initiation and figuring out what is your identity for the next 12 years. Aries is the baby of the zodiac. It's cardinal fire. It's initiation. And so wherever Aries sits in your chart, consider what is being initiated. Is it, which house is it, etc. I think it's a great question about how you're going to offer value in the coming Aquarian economy. How are we going to find ways to have technology support us? How are we going to show up for our community in communal ways? And I suppose that's why we're getting this little taste of it this year. But as 2024 comes in, we're going to get 9 months of Pluto in Aquarius, and then 2025 we're going to be in Aquarius. And it's like this little periods of the tastes that we can figure out what is our offering, what are our gifts, what's our purpose going into this new age. And within that, the last year and a half, we've been in this nodal axis of decay, rebirth, and death. We've been in the Scorpio Taurus axis. That means all the eclipses have been in Scorpio and Taurus. And I know a lot of people this November had a very intense time with that last eclipse in Scorpio. And Scorpio is really about, karma, sex, and, raising finance and other people's money, which is the 8th house. And I feel like we're getting this last piece between now and July in these same nodes. And it's really a question of what do you want to let go of? What do you want to die? And where are you still in survival, which is the Taurian piece. Taurus is about security and, financial feeling safe. And between now and July, and obviously the economy hasn't been the best in the world the last year, but it will pick up. And by July, we're going to be in a completely different nodal axis. We're moving into Libra and Aries, again, a new beginning, because the nodes are going to move into Aries. So there's this double initiation of newness this year. You get the Jupiter cycle moving until May, and then come July, the nodes of the world, the dharma and karma of the world, the south node being the karma, the north node being the dharma, move into Aries and Libra, which is really a relationship axis, because Libra rules partnerships and Aries rules initiation and identity. And so I think we're going to be getting a lot of questions this summer around how do we show up in relationship? How do we show up in partnership? And what new partnerships are we developing going forward, particularly in the new Aquarian age, because we're going to have this 3-month period in the spring that will lead us into this new cycle of the nodes going into the 1st and 7th house. So I feel like the question is what relationships do you want to let go of in this death and rebirth time between now and July, and what kind of relationships do you want to bring forward into the new year? Now, the next major element, and I'm not going to talk too much about this, but Saturn is moving into Pisces, and Saturn has been in Aquarius, which has already been initiating the Aquarian age. It's been since 2020. Interestingly, Aquarius rules the lungs, and Saturn moved into Aquarius March 2020. We know what happened March 2020, and I do think it's interesting that it will leave Aquarius in March this year, which will be the end of that cycle that we just dealt with in 2020, 2021, and 2022. As we move into Pisces, it's going to move from the air sign into a water sign. And Pisces is the elder. It's the 12th house of the zodiac. And really, I think we're going to be asked a lot of questions around our own leadership, our own mentoring. Who are we mentoring? And how are we leading in an emotional way going forward? What lessons do we have to learn about the deep unconscious, feeling in our beings? How do we deal with people in a more feminine way? Because Aquarius is very masculine, it's air, while the Piscean feeling is much more feminine. It's Neptunian, it's the ocean, it's the underworld, it's actually space too. It's the dream world. And with Saturn there, we're going to get a lot of questions around how we show up. I feel like with elders and the elders around us, how do they teach us? Because Saturn will eventually move through Pisces and do an ending period and a begin then in Aries come next year. And that will be another beginning that we'll have the Pluto beginning a new cycle. We'll have Jupiter already have done its new cycle. And then we'll have Saturn beginning a new cycle. And so it's really, again, this is the last chance for us to understand. It's our last chance to figure out the 12th house, Piscean underworld. And I'm going to correct myself. It's not going to be next year. Saturn will stay in Pisces for at least 2 years. But what I will say is that the 12th house rules retreat, and it rules the unconscious. It rules addiction too. What addictions do we have to let go of? What addictions are going to be surfacing so that we can deal with them in a more balanced, harmonious way? There will be a Venus retrograde during 2023 as well, which is going to question our value systems, how we love, how we show up in a relationship, how we show up to the feminine. And this happens every 2 years, so it's not like a giant cycle, but it's going to be happening during summer, and it's worth considering, if there's any romantic elements in your life that have been stagnant, or are there some new initiations that get re-questioned? Are there new relationships that started in the last year or two that get re-questioned? Also, a lot of people get married in retrogrades. It's like confirmation of their love, and I wouldn't recommend that, but I've been to 2 marriages in Venus retrogrades, and both of them seem to work out. So it can be a deepening of love, and that's happening this summer. And I think between all of that movement, we really are questioning our value systems. How do we show up in community? How does our value system match the value system of the world going forward? And I'm gonna kind of go. That's the kind of the broader themes of the year. I'm gonna kind of go, in a much more short term now. The 21st of January coming up. This new moon in Aquarius. It's an interesting time right this second on January 10th, because we've had Mercury in retrograde, we've had Mars in retrograde for 2 months in Gemini, and they're both going to go forward this month. We're going to have Mars finally go forward in Gemini on January 12th, which is going to, it's going to speed up our mental faculties. It's going to, anything Geminian, trade, trade, commerce, social media, that's all going to move forward in a very, very rapid way between now, January 12th and March 23rd. It can be a little unsettling having Mars in Gemini. It's not its most natural position, but it's going to bring a lot of ideas to the surface. And because it's been doing a 6-month, very unusual process in Gemini, this began last August, September, and then went into a giant retrograde, and is now about to go direct. And so if there's things that you started August, September that now need finishing, it's a superb time to move forward on projects that began then. I have to say the energy will pick up again, because on January 18th, then Mercury will go forward as well. So by the 20th of January, moving to this 21st new moon, we're going to be literally about to embark on a giant, like, train. And I would argue that train is going to be going at top speed until May. All this new energy is going to be coming through, and yeah, all the planets are direct. Uranus goes direct as well on the 22nd of January. You know, it's all about community, rebellion, like the feeling of, it's like lightning. Like Aquarian energy ruled by Uranus is like lightning. What ideas come up in the end of January? And that's why this 22nd is so powerful. You've basically all these planets between now and then going forward, and then Uranus finally on the 22nd goes direct. And, you know, whatever your offerings are, consider what they should be on those dates. And what's interesting about this date as well is you've got Lilith, you know, the planet of the rewilding feminine, opposing the sun of this day. And so there's going to be a giant question around, how do you honor the feminine in this new world? How do you allow the feminine to be free and to be wild and to enjoy her chaos naturally and hold that, and in a non-controlling, non-patriarchal way? I think that's a question that's going to be coming up for everyone in the Aquarian age, as the masculine figures out how to manage the feminine as she rises and is more and more free. You know, we're coming out of a long phase of controlling the feminine, and the masculine is going through a giant process with that. And I would argue that Chiron, the wounded masculine, the wounded warrior, is having its own journey with that. And this is coming up a lot in my readings with people, you know, people figuring out, how do I operate with the feminine now? I don't know how to even deal with it. A lot of men are figuring out how to deal with her because they're so programmed to control in the patriarchal model, to control the feminine. And that's not working anymore because the feminine is rising and Lilith is rising. And so there's this is a very interesting moment on January 21st, because it's a giant opposition between Lilith and the sun of that moment. And I do think we're going to be witnessing the feminine, you know, being in her power in this moment. And again, just another flashpoint for the masculine to show up and allow her to feel safe in those moments of wildness. And this is the beginning of a long cycle. This is only going forward, not backwards. So the sooner the masculine emotionally learns how to be intelligent towards the wild feminine, the more successful those masculines will be. And you know, this is a deep undercurrent of the work that I'm doing, because I'm just seeing it with everyone I'm reading. But you know, just to round things out, my instinct is plant a seed. What is your Aquarian nature? You know, what are you offering in this time going forward in 2023 in your community? You know, what can you offer those around you? And yeah, consider what is the new cycle, the new 12-year cycle. It's a very exciting year. It's going to feel very different and at times alien, because we haven't felt this energy for this lifetime at all. And in many ways, a lot of people have been waiting for this time. I mean, when I started studying astrology 18 years ago, I heard about the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction of 2020, and I'll never forget experiencing it. And then I always knew that by 2024, there would be this giant move into Aquarius. And, you know, I never really realized the technological aspect of it and how much technology has moved forward since then. I couldn't have imagined it. So that element has been really interesting. But the interconnectedness, the ability for us to now instantly be in contact everywhere in the world with each other, is completely the Aquarian age. And really, it's extremely exciting. It's just a query and quandary of, how do we use it best, and how do we show up for each other in this new time? And yeah, I feel like there's a lot of excitement to be had and a lot to share. And I know a lot of people have been working deeply on their gifts the last 2 years, and this year is the time to put them out there. The water and the soil will be more receiving of certain messages that were not, you know, receivable in the last 2 years. The Aquarian ground will offer sprouts to some seeds that wouldn't be even, they wouldn't be watered, let's say, in the last few years. So I wish you all a very, very special year ahead, and I will do more of these videos when I find a specific new moon or full moon or a powerful a powerful transit to discuss. Sending you all so much love, and look forward to collaborating and sharing stories and magic with you in 2023. Big love.